In the deep, mean streets of Wanganui lives the biggest and baddest podcast.
Reverence Podcast with Jesse and James.
We have an international guest. We are greeted today with podcasting royalty. He is host of the Bible Study Podcast and the award-winning Amateur Traveler Podcast. 20 years of podcasting, over 2,000 episodes, and one great man of God. A guy so great they named him twice. Please welcome to the show, the one and only, Chris Christensen.
Alright, let's get this over and done with. So this is the Ravens podcast with Jesse and James, and I'm James.
And I'm Jesse.
No, I actually enjoy doing this. I'm just kidding. It's great fun.
Love it. And we're here to stay.
Hopefully.
All day, every day.
Well, we're talking to Chris Christensen, and hope you enjoyed. We're just gonna keep this going for a while and until we reach the end of the interview.
You betcha. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whoever shall believe in him shall not perish but have eternal life.
You are listening to the Reverence Podcast with Jesse and James. Great job. Pat yourself on the back immediately.
Awesome. Yeah, well, I just wanted to hit on that area where you said you were showing up sometimes and they may not have shown up, but as a youth worker currently myself, and as sort of being in that juvenile space as a child, young teenager, believe it or not, I did end up in a bit of trouble. My brother, very similar as well. I think in hindsight, you see that actually showing up for them speaks a lot, It speaks a lot of volumes. They're like,
Agreed.
He actually cared, even though we didn't show up, he did. And that's a lot of the times what they're lacking is consistent people in their lives that will be present, even when they don't feel like engaging. So I do have a relative who is very close to me and is in prison for some time. And in some of our discussions I've had with him, he really values the ministers that are in there.
Oh, yeah.
It sounds like at points he has received a lot of counsel as well from them when things have been difficult. And so in saying that, I guess, what kind of changes or fruits have you seen when you've done the Bible studies with the young people in these juvenile halls?
So again, like they told me, most of the time, nothing. You know, you see them for 3 weeks and then they're gone and they're in some other unit or they're out or whatever. So you just you don't necessarily see the results of the seed you plant. And then every once in a while, you'd get just miraculous change. The one that really stands out to me is I had a kid who started coming to Bible study. And for the first month he's there, so first 4 times that we get together Bible study, he clearly did not want to be there. But there were, this was one of those units, he could do anything else, right? So I didn't know why he was there. I didn't ask him. It's not I don't need to ask that question. He's here. I need to, deal with him. But he wasn't asking any questions. He wasn't talking. There's opportunity for, do you want to read aloud? Do you're having the kids do that and you're asking if they have any questions. About a month in, he starts asking questions, good questions. 2-3 months in, he's like reading ahead, we're doing a study of the Gospel of John or something like that, and he's reading ahead. He's coming with questions, good questions from what he's been reading, and it gets more and more alive as it goes on. Because the first he was just really shut off, emotionally very, very closed up. Well, I didn't learn why he was at Bible study till he was there about 6 months, and finally he told me that he came to Bible study because he was in his room by himself, and the way he described it is the room lit up with light and someone put a finger on his chest and said, "You're going to Bible study." And it was one of those things, if he told me that the first day, I would have gone, yeah, sure. Yeah, well, there's a lot of mental issues and people in there and such. But I had seen him change for 6 months, and he told me that, and it was more like, oh, okay, well, now it makes sense. So there are times that, you get the one kid who you've never seen before, but somebody else has planted the seeds and he just wants to pray with somebody so that he can become a Christian. But again, that would happen once or twice or 3 times in, 15 years or so. So they weren't wrong that it wasn't a ministry that you should expect, that you're going to see like that every week. But, you got the sense that, I would explain that story, for instance, and I would tell people as I'm talking in a church or whatever about the ministry, I'd say, that proved to me that God was already in the prisons. We ought to be there too.
I must admit, actually, I heard you say that story a couple of times in your podcast, and I've loved every time I've heard it. It's such a cool story. Actually, it's interesting you're saying about not seeing the fruits a lot of the time, because my late father, he did do some work with victim support and with some youth counseling when I was quite young. I was probably only about 5. He did talk a little bit sometimes about some of the stuff that he did and how the background of some of those kids was quite rough. But he was a pastor throughout his whole life as well. And growing up, especially as I got older, sometimes as a pastor, people don't always treat you very nicely. Sometimes people
I had at least one person in my Bible study who was there because he'd stabbed his pastor, which was one of the few times that the chaplain told me why someone was in there. I think it was only twice in 15, 20 years that the chaplain thought I needed to know, because I wasn't there to talk about what they'd done. I was there to talk about, life going forward. So, yeah.
I suppose that's a good heads up to have.
That what you thought I should know. Yeah.
Yeah. Fortunately, Dad never got to the stage of someone stabbing him. But sometimes he had some issues with people, and where sometimes if he stood up for what he believed was right, that he got some resistance from people. And you could actually see a lot of the time being at home how much it could actually get to him at times when he was having particularly difficult times. But I think he passed away maybe about 3 or 4 months ago. But it makes you really analyze what a person's life is like, and even if they don't see the fruits right there and then, the fruits grow into trees and they touch people even after they're gone.
You'll also have those moments that are heartbreaking, where that kid there were 2 kids at one time that I'm in the unit and I'm thinking, I'm there to help them. They are really leading the group. They had great leadership skills. Suddenly we had more people coming. They're telling people to come to Bible study. It was one of the most exciting times. And he went off. I don't remember if he aged out or if he got released. It's heartbreaking when you see him come back. But a lot of these kids, there's all sorts of things going on in their lives. There are all of these forces that are pushing them in different directions. And just because, you come to faith doesn't mean all those problems go away. And doesn't mean you're going to make all good decisions going forwards. So you'll have those heartbreaking moments too, where you have to tell them, I'm not glad to see you back, but I still love you.
That's really good. I thought we could talk a little bit about your travel podcast now.
Yeah, sure.
We wanted to know, has travel shaped or strengthened your faith in any surprising ways over the years?
I'm not sure that it has. I saw the question when you gave me a list of questions, and a lot of my travel has been done actually since I started the podcast. I think when I started the podcast, I'd been to a dozen countries, and now I've been to 76. So my faith was fairly well established. really by the time I was in high school or college. So I'm not sure that it has changed. It has given interesting opportunities to be exposed to other faiths, and to be able to understand more where they're coming from. But it hasn't changed my core beliefs, I don't think, in any way that I've identified, at least.
Yeah, actually, there was one thing that was interesting was both my parents, before I was born, they were missionaries, and they briefly went to a couple countries in Africa. My mum went to Guinea-Bissau and dad went to Ghana. When they talk about the Christian faith and I guess other faiths in Africa, I think it's really interesting how, compared to the Western world, their religious views are very matter of fact. Like, if you go to someone here, for example, who is not a believer, and you try to talk to them about the faith, they might say something like, well, I don't believe in that. I think that's a lot of rubbish. We all go to the dust when we die, and there's nothing beyond that. It seemed like a lot of times when they talk to Africans, their response very often was, okay, well, I'm worshipping this God. Can you guarantee to me that if I follow Jesus, that he's going to protect me from that God who is now going to want to destroy my life because I'm turning away from him? And they sort of treat it more like religious, like warfare, very much like it's just a normal part of life.
Yeah, I think from what I've heard from missionaries, spiritual warfare is a little more obvious in places like that. But I've also been in places where I went with a group of volunteers from my church to go to Tanzania to try and support a church there that was caring for orphans from AIDS, which has really hit that part of Africa very heavily. And the one thing I think of in terms of eye-opening, that the church is bigger than you think. We went to their worship service, and it was, I walked in and it was like, I thought we were there helping the little church. Well, we were there helping the big church. Their church was a lot larger than ours. But we obviously had some resources because of where we were that allowed us to help. But it was a wonderful experience spending time with those brothers and sisters in Arusha, Tanzania, at a church there, and just being able to take part in the ministry that they were doing. I think when we first heard about them, they were caring for 100 orphans or something like that. And by the time we got there, they were caring for 400. And we didn't understand the way things work there. We were like, well, where's the orphanage? Well, there's no orphanage. Everybody's living with relatives. And I think we asked the question, well, what if they don't have relatives? And they looked at us like we had two heads. It's like, you're there in a tribe. And when I say tribe, don't think grass skirts and huts. Think, they dress like us and they live in houses, but they're still a tribe. It was the Chaga tribe. And everybody, we're all related, right? So there was just a very different worldview that, we're like, well, what if they don't have relatives? And they're like, how could you not have relatives? It was a foreign concept. They just didn't get it at all.
I can't tell you what 1 + 1 is, but I can tell you that you're listening to the Reverend's podcast with Jesse and James.
And that is a good equation to come to the conclusion of.
That's the end of this episode. The end.
The end of the beginning.
Go home.
But
no,
yeah.
You probably already are home if you're listening to this from home, but
And if for some strange reason you decided to listen to this one as your first one, go back to season 1 and listen to episode 1.
Yeah, we've got some pretty good stuff there, and we've had a lot of adventures. But now we're on an adventure with Chris Christensen, and you can find him on any podcasting platform. He's got the Amateur Traveler podcast and the Bible Study podcast, and temporarily he's here with us.
Those are some bangers, so crack into those.
And make sure you find us on Facebook, Reverence the Podcast, and you can email us at reverencethepodcast@outlook.com if you feel like emailing us. I don't know.
Yeah, I'd do it, but no spam mail, okay?
No spam. We're not interested in, the Nigerian prince who has $500,000 to give away.
We're not that motivated by money. Sometimes.
I mean, you can give us money if you're not a scam, but anyway, thank you for listening. Bye.
Catch ya.